if someone does want to grow a specific species that does have a long vase life just naturally, are there like two or three that are really good picks?
Just like vegetables, flowers have cool season flowers and warm season flowers. So just be thoughtful about that. You have to be careful with cut flowers, recommending random ones because certain varieties are not, they're short. So basically, as you're, if you're at Home Depot, we've all seen the snapdragons that are like 6 inches tall. That is not the right variety that you want in your garden. So just being thoughtful about what you're choosing, because you want to look at the height, like how tall is this, is this flower going to be? And if it's you want something at least like 18 inches, ultimately you want like a 3 or 4 foot tall plant. That would be more ideal. For example, for summer, I do love growing zinnias. They're very productive. They do last usually a week in the vase, or sometimes longer, sometimes a little shorter. So those are a great one. I mean, they're very easy to grow. Cosmos are very easy to grow. Dahlias can be a little trickier, but those are another warm season flower here that is very productive and very beautiful. They're hard to find anywhere else than in your garden. And so those would be a few warm season flowers.
The one that I think I'm probably not even right here, maybe not. My girlfriend planted a little flower patch, just whatever she wanted to grow, no like sort of care of it if it was good for cutting or not. I think it's Scabiosa.
Oh yeah.
But post bloom, the sort of dead material that's left is really cool. Mm-hmm. And so basically, it has a super long vase life of its dead form, if you like that look, and we kind of do. So we have these little micro vases of the sort of papery thin, skeleton of that plant, basically, which is, I don't know, if someone's into that, give it a shot. It looks kind of cool.
Yeah, scabious is awesome. It's probably one of my biggest producers. And I plant those in the fall here, and they bloom in the spring, and they're very, very productive. And they last a long time in the vase. Those actually, if you just cut the plants back, they'll bloom next year as well.
When it comes to cutting those flowers and making an arrangement, I'd imagine like you're building those bouquets for your bouquet CSA, right? And are there like general principles that make a good arrangement? Because I have to confess, like when I see them, I can tell if one looks good. I can't really tell if one looks bad unless it's like atrocious, right?
Yeah.
But I also can't tell why it looks good. My brain just doesn't get it. So I'd love to learn.
Typically in floral design, we talk about focal flowers, filler, foliage, secondary flowers, and like accent flowers. But something just to kind of break that down from a gardener, you could kind of shop your garden and look at what flowers you have growing, or also obviously as you're garden planning, try to kind of plan so that you have all of those components in the garden. But basically look for different textures, look for different shaped flowers, and interesting foliage. If you're short on like you want more foliage, you can actually cut flowers and keep the leaves on them. There's a lot, you can cut foliage from your plants, even if they're not actually blooming yet. So basically kind of being mindful of those different components. And then if you're let's say you're making a bouquet to bring to a neighbor, you just want to make sure you have a nice clean vase, because just to keep, help those flowers last as long as possible. And then if you want to arrange them to give them as a gift, you can actually use tape or make some sort of a grid on the top to kind of keep the flowers in place in the vessel. So you could just use, basic tape and then cover the top with, foliage or set down some flowers really low on the top of that vessel, and then kind of build it up from there.
I never thought about the tape idea. That's so clever. There's a style, man, I am not going to get it right off the top of my head. My girlfriend has this book, and it's like this Japanese style of arranging the flowers where they're sort of very separated, I guess. Do you know the method I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think I know what you're referring to. Yeah, I mean the ikebana.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, ikebana. Yeah. So she got this, like, I think it's called a frog that you put at the bottom, and she like stabbed them in and did all this kind of stuff. It was super cool. Is there something to be said for like vase styles? Like, how do you know if I'm choosing like a little short squat one or a nice tall and thin one? Does it just have to do with the type of flower you're cutting?
You're kind of developing an eye the more you kind of take the time and space to design what you're growing. I think you can kind of develop an eye for what looks good and what size vase. You want your design to extend around 1.5 times the height of your vessel. So that can kind of be helpful in like judging, okay, how tall should this really be versus how short? But obviously there's all different kind of low arrangements. Do you want something that's a little higher? But I think it's nice to have a variety of different vessels on hand for kind of whatever it is you're making. Whatever kind of you're creating, you want to put those flower stems in on an angle. And then something else to be thoughtful about is just making sure they're all at different heights. That's another
yes, you can
big
see
one.
them all, right?
Yeah, and you don't want two flowers kind of being at the same height. They also say odd numbers are more pleasing to the eye than even numbers. So if something actually kind of looks off about your arrangement, you can maybe check like, oh, maybe you should go with 3 sunflowers versus 4 or something. And it's amazing how that changes the look.
It's, you know what? That's the one thing I think I probably have done right in the things I've built is I have put sunflowers in one before, and I put 2 in, and I'm like, this just doesn't look, something's weird about this. It looks too even. It looks too sort of manicured, I guess. In like container garden, like floral container arrangement design, when you're planting plants in an actual planter, there's this whole like thriller, filler, spiller idea, right? Where you have like that flagship plant, something that fills it, and then something goes over the edge. Does that apply in bouquets as well, or is there some sort of like rubric you can use?
When I'm making like a bouquet for my subscription, I'm thinking about, I like to use foliage and some people don't. But the other nice thing about using some foliage is if you have kind of a color palette you're going with and you're trying to kind of fuse multiple different colors, I feel like the foliage just kind of breaks things up a little bit. It's not as stark, the contrast between the colors. But yeah, having that foliage can be kind of some of that draping that you're kind of talking about. We talk about line flowers. So that would be like, right now I'm using celosia as kind of my line flower because it would kind of be like a straight line up. You could use basil that's flowering and is nice and stiff. That can be another line flower in a bouquet that actually holds up. Or in the spring, I love growing snapdragons, larkspur. Those would be other like a line flower. So that would be, so you have your foliage, your line flower, and then filler, status, yarrow.
Yarrow makes a lot of sense because it sort of has that umbral structure, but the flowers are so small, you're not like really drawn to them with the eye, right?
Yeah.
It's just more of a textural layer piece.
Feverfew is another one of my favorite. I love kind of making a little bed of those filler flowers, such as those, and then resting my big focal flowers, like that would be like a sunflower, a dahlia, a big zinnia could be a focal flower, ranunculus, anemones in the spring, an Iceland poppy, kind of resting that on the kind of my little bed of filler. Accent flowers, I think, are important. So that would be kind of like anything that has like a little sparkle to it. Frosted explosion grass is a really fun one to grow in the summer. That's like very sparkly.
Cool.
And, even the pincushion flower, the scabiosa, can be kind of an accent flower. So something kind of floating above the arrangement.
Yeah, or like sometimes I've seen ones that have like a wispy quality to them where at the very, very top, maybe it's like a weird grass or something. It kind of floats around and it just looks like it breaks the structure a bit, I guess, makes it feel a little bit more free.
Yes.
Some really cool ideas on arranging. Maybe I'll post a couple of my my flower arrangements to Instagram or something, so I'll get roasted for sure. But
love it.
I don't know. I'll follow you first, then I'll maybe post and tag you, see what you think.
Best way to get better at arranging is to take pictures of your arrangement, because it's always remarkable, the difference between our eye and then what you get behind a camera lens. And I think it's a great way to improve. I mean, often I take a lot of pictures of what I make and like, oh, that was off. and then how can we do better next time? So
yeah, it kind of reminds me, like, I used to draw a lot as a kid. And so I'd draw something and then I'd be like, dude, this is amazing. It's so cool. And then I look at it the next day and I'm like, this just looks like garbage. Like you could see all the flaws in the light of day. And maybe it's the same with like taking the photo. It kind of separates your bias out of it.
Watch the full episode right here and subscribe for more new episodes every single week.